This corner of my shop has been a problem for a long time. I kind of use it as junk storage, as you can see. If you saw it just a couple weeks ago, I couldn't even walk in this space that I'm standing in right now. It was just piled full of junk. So I've been working on it, getting there, got the bins all out of here, all the storage bins that I had in here. And now what I want to do is get this vise useful for some metalworking stuff that I want to do to be able to bend things. And years ago I bought this little thing, which has been pretty useless. So I want to get that bigger one functional. I want to mount it on this side of the bench over here. But there's some damage to that bench from a vise that was there back when this was in an industrial application. I think this bench is from like the 1960s. It was at a company I used to work for, and they really beat it up and kind of cracked this side of the bench with a big vise that was on there at some point during its life. I got this bench when we moved to a different building. It was my first woodworking bench. I also got my first table saw and sander from that shutting down of that little shop that was in that building. But anyway, first things first, I got to clean this off so I can make the repair, and then we'll mount that vise up. So the whole seems like a pretty simple thing, but I've got a cool way that I'm going to mount the vise. Here we go. Well, first thing I got to do is get this bench clean, and since I'm doing a major shop overhaul, I'm not going to mess around and just move everything away. I'm going back and forth to the hardware store, putting things away. You can see I even got out a bin, added another label to it, and vacuumed the thing off. And now I'm ready to get started. You can see right there's a big crack in the side of the bench where a bench vise obviously used to be mounted. And took out, it goes almost all the way down the bench, that crack. It's kind of gnarly. So I think what I'm going to do is try to put some clamps on it, pour some epoxy in there, and run some bar clamps across it. See if I can't get that thing a little tighter. You can see also there's a lot wrong with the top of this bench. There's a bunch of holes drilled in it for obviously other things over the years. Bunch of spills, junk. I've mixed my finishing on here. I probably screwed a couple of fixtures down for doing something or another over the years. There's a big burn right there. Like every time you touch this bench, your hands get crusty and nasty. So my plan is to go around and fill in some of these holes with some plugs. Plugs is the word you were looking for, Jay. Plugs. Patch them up and try to do the best I can with that crack that goes all the way across it. And then I can work on mounting the vise. So the first thing I'm doing is scraping the bench to get it prepared for epoxy. Then I'm test fitting some clamps to see how well it closes down the gap. That was a pretty big crack on that side, and there was a big one on the other side. So I'm going ahead and putting some tape underneath to make sure that the epoxy doesn't come out the bottom. And then I mix up some epoxy and start to pour. So I pour the epoxy. I'm going to put some wax on a clamp, and once I wax this clamp up, I will use it as I did before to make sure that both sides of the gap are even, and then I can clamp it all down, and then I can pour some epoxy on the other side, throw a clamp on there, and I will eventually come back and bang on it with a hammer and do some other stuff as the epoxy sinks in. I probably went back 2 or 3 times to refill those cracks. Now I'm going ahead and I'm cutting out some plugs on my blurry drill press and going over to the bandsaw. You'll see a bunch of dust flying out of the bandsaw. It turned out I had every dust port open for my entire dust collection system. I don't know what I was thinking that day. Now that I have all the plugs cut, I head back over to the bench and I use this super cheap drill guide that I got at one of the big box stores. It's not a very good thing, and you can see I catch here. I'm trying to cut holes just slightly larger than they are on their center, and it's not a good task to be doing, but I'm trying to make all the holes consistent size, and some of them are very close to the size that I had started with, so they're catching everywhere. So I just start to put the plugs in the holes here, glue them, tap them in, and I'll let them dry overnight. But I pretty much drilled and put in about 30 of these holes, and then I also went back and redid some of the epoxy again, and you can see I filled in the burn hole. I had to gouge that out, and then I filled it with a pool of epoxy. It's now the next day, and I'm going down and removing the clamps and checking out how everything turned out. See how the wax did on this thing over here. Yeah, nice, perfect. Now that I don't have a clamp that's permanently attached to my bench, I'm going ahead and flush cutting all the plugs. And then I'm going to start sanding, and I spent a lot of time on sanding the pool that was the burn mark. So now I'm going to take the bench over to the drill press to drill in the vise mounts. It seems like an appropriate time to talk about what I'm going to use as a vise mount. It's a little different. It's a trailer hitch receiver. And you can see me marking the holes for the trailer hitch receiver there that's made to mount. It's a company called Trick Tools makes this mount, and you can see they also make a hitch that has a plate welded onto it that allows the vise to be mounted to the hitch, and then you can just plug it into the receiver. I also have a receiver mount that they make to hang on the wall, and I put that up in my garage. Now that I have everything marked out, I'm raised up the bench top using my height adjustable workbench, and I'm spending quite a bit of time fiddling around, tapping this thing, trying to get the first holes in the correct place. Once I figure out how to really deal with this thing, I had an easier time. But as I go, and I'm cutting more holes, I start to use the hitch receiver itself as a guide to guide the drill bit. These are big holes. I think it's 5/8" bolts I'm putting into this thing. Right, when I drilled at the drill press, it's mighty nice having that lift table because I can drag this whole top right over to the drill press, drill it in. When I did the drilling at the drill press, I drilled the holes to almost make it to the end, but not quite. And then I actually used a handheld drill to get just the very little tip of this of the Forstner bits to show through, and I circled them on here. All 4 of them are there, and now I'm going to drill a countersink for the big giant. These are 5/8". The holes in this thing are giant 5/8" holes, so I'm going to go ahead and bolt this thing down as solid as I can. So I'm going to measure the top of this, and then I'm going to do a countersink on the top using those holes. This is a cheapo caliper, but it measures in 64ths, which is kind of nice. So let's see, we got, looks like an inch and what is this? 17/64. Alright, great. Okay. So despite how many times I measured, I couldn't get it down to 1 1/4 inch, so I've got, the next size I have is 1 3/8". So I'm going to go ahead and make a little guide for 1 3/8" here. So now I'm going to go ahead and drill the countersinks. I figure out the depth there, and then if I started just drilling the thing in, there's a 5/8" hole underneath there, and the center would get lost, and the bit would wander. So I just drill enough to get where I can use the bit to center itself, and then I use this guide to just get myself a little 32nd of an inch groove in there, and then I can pull the guide out and go ahead and drill it the rest of the way deep. So I do this for each of the 4 holes. Once I get all 4 holes drilled, I kind of need to mount the carriage bolts into the hole. Alright, so for carriage bolts, this wood is really hard. This maple. So I'm going to need to go ahead and make a little square for the square piece to go down into. So let's just see how it looks when I make an indentation for it. Alright. Yeah, can't even tell. Alright. So I'm going to go ahead and I should get bigger children. Square off the edges of this hole. Nice. So for all 4 of the holes, I do about a 1/4 inch of knocking the edge of the hole out so that the square of the carriage bolt fits, and then I'm going to go ahead and try to mount up the receiver. You go to the hardware store and you buy these giant 5/8 inch bolts. You get these humongous washers, which don't fit around that thing. So I found hanging around, there was some smaller ones. So that's what I'm going to try to use here. Alright, I found 15/16 deep socket, but it's just one of those ones that's not really that deep internally. So let's see what happens. Looks like it's on there. This thing has these adjustments on it to tighten up around the hitch point. There are these socket screws. There's some on the bottom and then there's some on the side. Problem with these is they go in right where those screws want to be. Not the greatest idea. So I think I'm going to have to get a cutoff wheel and come in and just cut it off. Okay, off camera, I sort of stuck this vise on here. Yeah, I'm going to have to put a little spacer on this to keep it off the... I was afraid of that. It's a little shallow, so that it's not much of a spacer, but I'm going to have to build a little spacer for the bottom of the vise to raise it up just a bit. Now I'm going to do the spacer with just a piece of cherry. Someday I may replace that with a piece of metal. Same as the bench had a spot on it that I had burned, I suspect. Someday I'm going to put some heat on this thing. It will also burn, so see if I can find a piece of at least aluminum, maybe steel that's thick enough. Alright, before I continue, it's time to make an improvement to my drill press. The original drill press check on this was terrible. For such an expensive drill press, it came with a garbage check. So I bought this, but it came with this key that has the spring-loaded thing. Those are. So I have another one that doesn't have that stupid thing in it, which I like. It's not hanging from the drill press, but so I'm going to make a drill press improvement. Nice rare earth magnet. Ha! Done! Now I can find my key. It's not hanging off the side. That's probably the best thing I did all day. Right. So the drill press is backwards. Woo, that's a strong magnet. Ha! Oh, joy. One of these days, I will have a spot to put that, and all this stuff will have their homes. It's getting close. It's getting close. These things just really need to be put away. I cut extras, put them in a bin so that I'll have them next time. And here we go. The router table is free! So using the router table that's now free, I'm going ahead and putting a round over on the cherry spacer, and then I'm going to go ahead and sand and finish it. Hey, it's several months later. The bench is done. The vise works great. I've used it several times. I replaced those socket screws that were in the vise with these thumb screws. I had some camera issues, so all my stuff didn't quite make it in here. But it makes it much easier to get this thing in and out. When you saw me struggle putting it in the first time, it was because those socket screws were kind of screwed in and they were keeping it from going in. But these thumb screws, much easier to use. I have 4 of the thumb screws. I lost some camera footage where I cut the bolts off, so that happened. This got sanded all around, refinished. I put a coat of, I think thin polyurethane, might have been Danish oil, I don't know, coat or 2. Whatever I have in a little jar is what I use. So you can see I didn't really like sand this thing all the way flat or run it through anything or try to make it look nice. I just wanted to seal everything in because every time I touch it my hands would get all dirty. Now they're clean. So as part of the smoothest edit you've ever seen in a video, here I am in the garage and I am mounting up the vise to the hitch, and it works the same way under the bench. It's just easier to show here in the garage. And you can see I just tighten these 4 thumb screws. I replaced those. They were socket head screws. I didn't quite like that. They were a little too small to tighten enough, and I didn't want to have to use a hex key. Nice and solid. I'm really happy to have a nice clean area to work in the corner of my shop over here. The lathe, it'll find a home someday. Thanks for watching.